Very good. Hello everyone. This is Ali Azzuddin from 4th Generation for Education, and this is our special day. Let's share and connect. This is session number 5 today. We have plenty of session in the morning, and then I have people today joining us from Lebanon, Switzerland, Romania, UAE, Mexico, China, and Kasia is in Italy, right?
Yes, exactly. I'm in Como.
And we have people from Australia. I think it's very late in Australia now, no? So remember in that chat, all panelists and attendees, we have a beautiful session for you about play therapy. And Kasia, feel free to start sharing and telling us what do you have for us today?
First of all, I would like to thank you, Ali, for inviting me because play therapy matters. So I am very, very thrilled and very excited about having this opportunity to share. So thank you once again. Also, following Anne Van Dam presentation about connected to play in a very, very extensive way. I'm very happy to see all that connection that we are on the same page because we all believe that play matters. So let me just introduce myself a little bit to you. The big name Kasia Krohn is my official name because some people ask me, sometimes we see your name like this, sometimes we see it as Kasia. Kasia Krohn is just the easiest way, and it's a very Polish way as well. So we stick with Kasia, but just in case you see it this way, it's still me. I was born in Poland. My mom is Polish, dad British. I live in Italy in a beautiful place called Como. I'm sure you have heard about Lake Como, and this is exactly it. I have over 25 years of being mainly a teacher. I see myself as primary teacher. I have experience in, and my heart lies definitely with early years. And I've been a primary teacher as well in countries such as Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, as well as Norway, as well as Russia, Anglo-American School of Moscow, if anybody from there, Poland, Italy, Switzerland. I've been a PYP leader, I've been a PYP coordinator, principal and assistant principal, and I'm also IB workshop leader and school visiting member. At the moment at present, I am working as an education consultant in various places around the globe. But now we're getting to the point that tells that I'm a play and creative arts therapist. And the reason I became play and creative arts therapist is that being a teacher in primary grade levels, beginning from the 3-year-olds all the way to grade 5, 6, whichever school that was, I thought that there is a missing element in the children's learning, that there is sometimes, in some children, of course, not all, but in some children, there is something that is preventing them from accessing the full potential in their learning. And then I had a chat because this is why I value so much collaborative meetings, because we learn so much from our colleagues. And at the time, the school counselor mentioned, I'm going to take this training about play therapy, and I want to become a play therapist as well. And I want this to become a part of my counseling practice. And this intrigued me. And I investigated it further, and here I am. I trained as a play therapist, and ever since I've always wanted to marry these two to a greater extent that it has been. That I strongly believe that play therapy should be a part of each elementary school, not only because it goes all the way to the middle school, and then there's also play therapy for teenagers and adults, but I'm talking now about in the context of elementary schools. And this is what I've been doing. I've been promoting play therapy wherever I worked as a teacher. In my other capacity, I also worked as a play therapist with children who needed to express themselves in different ways, not necessarily going straight away on medication, going on to the psychiatrists, going to all these heavy treatments just because they were acting slightly differently. And as we sat in various meetings, you know how teachers talk goes. It's usually, oh, so and so, you know, Johnny, he behaves like this. He is just so bad. Da 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 da. But there was always an underlying issue. Now, play therapy enables children to overcome their emotional barriers in a natural, the most natural way. So let me continue. I will tell you more about this, of course, throughout the webinar. Now, at the moment, I am the owner of Si Bambino, which is a child-centered space where we offer, of course, play therapy, but also a lot of educational learning engagements. At the moment, we offer creative writing, we offer drama, we offer expressive arts, not necessarily in the therapeutic context, and a lot more. So finally, my dream came true, and I'm running my own studio. If you are interested, please feel free to access the website, have a look and browse through. And of course, the email, contact me whenever you have any questions related to play therapy or in the therapeutic process or anything connected to learning and teaching, because this is what we also do.
So excited to know more about what did you prepare for us today. And then this is our agenda, some questions. What are our main questions, Kaisa?
So our main questions are, what is play therapy? How does it work? Why play therapy in schools? Because some people sometimes ask me, what? This doesn't belong to school. Yes, it does. But who is play therapy for? So we will be exploring these questions today. And then, of course, I'll give you a little bit of evidence, a little bit of history behind it, and some practical hints, you know, what can you do in the classroom, not being a play therapist that is of therapeutic nature. Now we are going to answer some questions or ask some questions, but I would like to begin with a question. What is play therapy to you? What is your perception of play therapy? What have you ever heard about it? Do you know anything about it, or is it completely new? Do you have any intriguing questions? So please feel free to ask them now, just to answer the first question, and then we will move on. Thank you.
So in the chat box or on Facebook, what is play therapy for you before we start and we give you the definition? And if you have any question, don't hesitate to send it in the Q&A box. So we will go back to this question at the end of that session. So Anna is saying play therapy is opening closed doors. Interesting. What else would you like to tell us about play therapy? Have you heard this word before? You can just send yes or no. Also, this will allow us to know more about our audience and then check your understanding. It's a safe space for people to express themselves, or they need it, or who need it. Is play therapy the same or related to sensory diet? So this is a question. Play therapy is a way for kids to play and to be free and to express. It's the base of learning. It's to give opportunity for learning to learn and to grow. It allows them to express themselves. What do they feel and what they cannot say, and many other ideas. I think it's time to check a definition from you.
Okay, so this beautiful quote here that you see by Gary Landred says that play is child's symbolic language of self-expression and can reveal what the child has experienced, reactions to what was experienced, feelings about what was experienced, and what the child wishes, wants, or needs, and the child's perception of self. Now, let's move to a more specific definitions. Now, what you are going to hear is a very basic knowledge and definitions. Of course, if anybody would like to pursue and become a play therapist, you will explore more and you will go more into the psychology of it. But it is definitely, and this is what connects us, and this is why I am always a strong believer and always have been a strong believer of the whole child, of the holistic approach to a child, of holistic way of approaching education. So play therapy, you can see, is connected in a child-centered way. So child-centered play therapy is a complete therapeutic system which is based on the belief that children are perfectly capable of self-regulating and self-directing difficulties which they are facing, provided the environment and the let's say encouraging and welcoming conditions under which they can self-regulate and they can self-direct, because they won't do it on their own and they won't do it in a heavily directed and structured environment. Play therapy is the most developmentally appropriate method of enabling children to express their feelings rather than asking them verbally. How many of you, perhaps some of you are parents as well, and you ask your child coming from school, what did you do in school? Nothing. You know, kids just don't have that natural, most kids don't have that natural capacity to verbally talk about how they feel. They know they feel it, they know they feel something, but how to talk about it? We as adults also, you know, it's talking about our feelings is not an easy thing to do. We do talk about our feelings and emotions to people we trust. And this is where a therapist role steps in, because children begin to trust the therapist. They trust in the confidentiality. They trust in an environment that is safe, where they can then not talk about it, because therapists will not ask them about what's happening, what's wrong with you. You know, they often come with already some kind of feeling of being labeled, because you know they have heard from mom and dad, they have heard from the teacher, they have heard from other people, blah, 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 no, something wrong with you, you are too noisy, too this, to that. So they come with some kind of misconception of this self-image already to the play therapy room. As you see on the illustrations, these are authentic pictures from the room I'm actually sitting in now. This is Bambino, and these are the part of the media that we are using in the therapeutic process. But before we move on to this, I would like you to just look a little bit at the theoretical basis of play therapy. There is self-actualization. Of course, we as human beings are naturally motivated to develop constructive and healthy capacities. Now, this tendency is to actualize each person's inner potentials, including aspects of creativity, curiosity, and become eventually autonomous, independent. The need of positive regard. All people require warmth. All people want to be accepted, especially children want to be accepted and praised for everything that they do, so that they can develop the self-image of being a good person, being positive, right? And do love oneself. Now, play is the communication that is the best communication that should. And so I really get frustrated and annoyed, you know, when people just say, oh, this is just play. Oh, goodness, no, not that play again. You know, children need that respect. That type of communication needs to be respected. Because it is serious. It's not just play. So whoever says to me just play, I get very defensive. Children use play as their primary medium of communication, and those people who are watching on as well, of course, you must also believe in this, and this is where I also see a huge positive change within the PYP with the new enhanced PYP, where play is in that kind of light that it wasn't initially. So I was very pleased to see when enhanced PYP was released, and to see that it is Reggio inspired, and it is all that play based. Just for you to understand a little bit more of what kind of toys do we have, what kind of materials do we use, because it is play and creative arts therapy. So what we do, we combine different elements of different other types of art. So there will be an element of art therapy, there will be elements of music therapy and dance and movement and dramatic role play. and symbolic figures, and oftentimes children choose the symbolic figures that are maybe fairies or a little bit, they have the magical element, because magic can do anything. So if they have something heavy sitting on their in their heart, that magic can remove this perhaps, or change. So there's a lot of symbolic figures, and toys that are of just maybe what you see in the classroom as well in your early years. There will be all sorts of kitchen type of things, and dolls, and teddy bears, and basically whatever children are and can act out and can act symbolically and play symbolically. Um, Maybe they want to, have a representation of what's happening at home. Maybe their parents are in the process of divorce, and they can't talk about it. But in the playroom, this will come out. They will have conversation, pretending to be one time a dad, one time a mom. Maybe there is a new baby, and some older children can get traumatized because there is a new baby in the family, and that whole jealousy is coming up. So they will be then playing mostly with babies, and doing all sorts of things to these babies. Sometimes you look as a therapist like, whoa, whoa. And sometimes they will be developing the nurturing skills towards a little brother or sister. There is an element of sand therapy. I'm sure you have heard about sand therapy before, so that's quite powerful as well. So we also have sand trays in my studio. I have dry sand and wet sand trays where children can explore their emotions and in a symbolic way. Now, what I find really, really powerful are therapeutic stories. And this is something what is really good to begin therapy with, because through a story, you're just telling somebody else's story. It's a story that's written, but oftentimes children can relate to it, constructing things, and then of course a lot of natural materials like you have in Reggio-based classrooms. So all these materials are are in the studio or in the play therapy room. Now, if a play therapist comes to a school, they might have portable play therapy kits, which will just have the same representation. Perhaps it will not, the amount and the choice will not be exactly, but the representation of all these different elements will be in that bag as well. At this point, I would like to give you very briefly, I know it can be a little bit overwhelming, to give you so much information, but I think it's really important, and then we will move on to a little bit more interactive part of this webinar. So it all started with Sigmund Freud's Little Hans, which was the very first publication of the little boy, where he described play as a part of therapeutic process. So what he did, he asked Hans's father to observe him during his play and record it. And that's where it all started. Well, in fact, it started all even earlier. In the 18th century was Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who was also saying, let's observe children's play. We can learn a lot from it, and we can learn a lot about that child. But let's not go that deep, because we just, we have time restrictions. But if you decide to explore it further, it's really interesting. Then we have different stages. So what I want you to look at the part in the middle, in the center, where there are different types of therapy, play therapy. So they're largely play therapy was based on the psychoanalytic play therapy. Then there was the release play therapy, relationship therapy, and the non-directive play therapy. This is what this session is about mainly. And this one has started, was initiated by Virginia Axline in the 20th century already. And this is the psychologist who pioneered the use of play therapy, which remains the popular method until now. She published a book called Dibs in Search of Self. So if you ever have a chance, perhaps, of reading this book, it's a powerful book. I do recommend it to teachers and parents, so definitely worth reading. And now just going back a little bit, a step back. So Melanie Klein, Anna Freud, these are big names in play therapy because, and definitely Carl Rogers, because this is where the person-centered therapy has initiated. So, and it eventually led to where we are now with Virginia Axline. This is in a capsule, okay? So there is a lot more to it. I don't want to bore you with the history, but what I would like you to see next. So Virginia Axline established principles of play therapy. So every therapist, this is, you know, like a must for a non-directive play therapist. You do need to establish this in your play therapy room. So it needs to be a warm and friendly relationship with the children. Otherwise, that trust is not going to happen, right? So there's not pushing, there's no shouting, there is no telling children what to do and what to say. It's step by step, and it might take time with some cases and some children who depending what problem they are facing. Now, there is no judgment. Children are accepted as they are, as they come. If they already come, as I mentioned to you earlier, they already come oftentimes labeled. They already know there is something wrong with them. Even if they haven't heard it, they know, they feel it. Then we are establishing the feeling of permission in the relationship so that the child feels free to express his or her feelings completely, that it's okay to now maybe go and paint, and it's okay to go and later on maybe, you know, they decide about their time and space and what kind of media they want to use. Now, being alert to recognize the feelings the child is expressing and reflects these feelings back in such a manner that the child gains insight. So what we do typically in this situation is maybe the child says, you know, I really hate going to school. So we don't comment on this. We don't say, you know, oh, this is really bad, you know, you must go to school. But we say, you basically repeat pretty much of what that child said. Oh, you're saying that you hate going to school. And then the conversation goes, but it's always the child who makes statements. The child that maybe makes a move in the sandbox. As a therapist, I'm not telling them or moving their dinosaur first ahead of them. They start the process. If they want me to follow their dinosaurs, I will. So it's that kind of relationship. There is a deep respect, of course, for the child's ability to solve problems and believe in it, because children can solve their problems on their own, given the right environment and opportunity to do so. Again, because it is a non-directive type of therapy, there is a directive one, but that's not this one is about the non-directive, and I strongly believe in this one. The non-directive play therapy is that the children and conversations are always coming from the child. They are not coming from the therapist. In the classroom, they do a lot of time from the teacher. At home, they come from the parent. No, you must do it this way, but I want to put my puzzle this way. No, this is the right way to do it. You know, we do this, we just do it not, as teachers, as parents, and in the play therapy, that role is completely reversed. The child leads the way, the therapist follows. So we cannot hurry the process along. So we cannot say to the parents, you know, maybe they want, oh, can you do it? Because oftentimes that's the case, you know, they come, oh, there's something wrong with Johnny, you know, like whatever the problem is. How quickly, how fast do you think he can just become normal? It's just, it takes time. For someone, it takes, you know, maybe 10 sessions along the line. Somebody could be, for someone could be years. So we don't know. It's hard to predict straight away. But I strongly believe in the process, like I do believe in the process of learning, and the process being more valuable than the outcomes of learning. I do believe in the process of play therapy as well as the most important part. And then the limitations, of course, it's not like a child comes and throws everything around and does whatever they want. There are boundaries. So we do show boundaries because many children suffer from not having boundaries at home. And play therapy is where they learn how to respect boundaries in a way that is not punitive, that is not being told off for, that is, so they do need these boundaries, and they are like sponges for these boundaries. So you can recognize these children who just, you know, can do whatever they want at home, and they are just begging for these boundaries. So they do get them. There are very certain types of boundaries. For example, we always say you can do anything in that sand tray with your sand toys, whatever you're doing in there, but the sand always stay inside the box. Right, so it's not like they can do and throw this sand around. There are certain rules that we all follow as a society, and they also come here. However, they're not being told off if anything like that happens. Here, I just would like to share with you a piece from the school that I am currently doing a bit of consultancy. And I love going to the school because I see that joy of learning in the early years over there. And it's just, the kids just love learning. So I thought I do need to share. And then I'll tell you why after this video. This is just the very short cut up from a video that the staff prepared for the parents as their New Year's gift. That went home alongside the report, and it's absolutely fantastic. I saw this, and I was like, it made me smile. So I would like to share this with you as well. So definitely in that short video clip, you could see the joy of learning. And going back to what Anne was talking about, the self-image of a child, definitely joy needs to be a part of an element of that self-image. And I really love this poem, so I thought I'm sure most of you already know or are familiar with this one. If not, please enjoy this as much as I do. But once in a while, I do like to go back to this and read it to myself. Loris Malaguzzi, I think most of you already know who he was. If your school is Reggio based, definitely you have heard it. And the point I want to make here is that joy of learning that we see in schools, especially in early years, that play is going on all the time. The children actually following the true inquiry. What happens later? I worry, and this is also what came through my observation as a teacher, that there is this rapid borderline for children who are leaving the earliest, and I think the gap is widening now with the changes within the enhanced PYP when children enter the elementary section, because they operate on a very different basis, and suddenly from all this joy of learning and exploration and being so free, they need to become more structured. They need to no more, play is no longer, now it's called inquiry, I'm going to do this, and everything becomes quite heavily directed. Now homework or home learning, name it, all this is coming in. So the children are expected to become these real learners, a real elementary. Now you are in the real school, and you gotta embrace it. And what I am really worried about is that that play element developmentally does not go away. They still want to play. You know, developmentally, many of them should still stay within the early years environment, but it's no longer allowed and it's no longer there because our curriculum says this and the leadership says this and the parents say that and the homework needs to happen. And what happens to these young little children? They're young enough still that their day becomes heavily directed. Everything is directed. They go to school, they have to wake up, eat breakfast, then at school follow teacher's instructions, do this, do that, do that. They come home, eat, do homework, maybe do tennis, and of course don't forget the violin lesson. And there is no time for free play. There is no time. Now I'm talking about children who don't necessarily have been who haven't been diagnosed, who don't have very significant issues. I'm talking just about regular Joe, who goes to school, but all that play element is gone. Maybe they go on the weekend with parents again somewhere, but again, parents tell them, you need to do this, put these shoes on, do that, do that, do that. We are going to follow this path. The self-choices, the self-directed choices, self-directed regulation, it's not happening. So this is where my worry is, and I wanted to share this poem with you, and then now is the time for you to engage a little bit in some kind of dialogue here. So let's reflect on the meaning of the words of this poem. If you want me to go back, I will switch it back in a while. But what are the 100 languages and more? Which part of that poem do you think reflect emotional intelligence? And in which ways the 99 is being stolen? They tell the child that work and play, reality and fantasy, science and imagination, sky and earth, reason and dream are things that do not belong together. And thus they tell the child that the 100 is not there. So let's have a chat and let's come up with your reflections.
Hopefully the people, they know the poem, the 100 languages of Loris Malaguzzi. Unfortunately, we are having a problem with the screen, Kasia.
With what?
With the PowerPoint presentation, we're not able to read the text.
Really? I will read it. If I read it, is that okay?
Yeah, yes. So
okay, sorry, I don't know why is that happening, but
we've done our test 2 days ago and everything was working well. So today Anne had internet problem, Kasia had some presentation problem, but
right.
okay.
Okay, so well, let me read it then. No way, the 100 is there. The child is made of 100. The child has 100 languages, 100 hands, 100 thoughts, 100 ways of thinking, of playing, of speaking. 100, always 100 ways of listening, of marveling, of loving, 100 joys for singing and understanding, 100 words to discover, 100 worlds to invent, 100 worlds to dream. The child has 100 languages and 100 more, but they steal 99. The school and the culture separate the head from the body. They tell the child to think without hands, to do without head, to listen and not to speak, to understand without joy, to love, to marvel, only at Easter and Christmas. They tell the child to discover the world already there. And of the 100, they steal 99. They tell the child that work and play, reality and fantasy, science and imagination, sky and earth, reason and dream are things that do not belong together. And thus they tell the child that the 100 is not there. The child says, no way, the 100 is there.
So in the chat, what are your reflection about this poem? What are your feelings? What are the keywords that connected to you? What are the 100 languages? And let's share together your thinking. So Mona is mentioning in the chat that the 100 languages are the different ways of expression for the children. I'm waiting for more feedbacks on Facebook or via Zoom. And while we are waiting, I have a question about what age is it mostly proven to be effective regarding the play therapy?
Yeah, so typically it's done from age 3 all the way to 16. So this is the modality I've been trained for and I'm certified to work with. So I'm working with children beginning with the age of 3. Now, there will be the choices that they make as the older they get. Let's maybe adolescents will go more into the expressive arts part, but not always. It can be, you know, that they lack some parts within the play. But yes, the age of 3 they begin, and 16, and then of course there is play therapy for adults. So 16 and up, there could be a play therapy for adults in different modalities.
So,
but you know, usually they are already more able to talk, although teenagers don't necessarily want to talk about their feelings either. So, but definitely the arts therapy, then maybe types of Gestalt therapy or, you know, music art.
good.
Age of
So,
3.
in the chat, we're having languages related to feeling, related to the environment, related to the expression, related to who they are, related to their creativity. So expressing without boundaries, and many other comments like the creativity, the multiple ways of seeing and multiple ways of being. So these are some of the chat, and then we are starting now we're starting maybe the last part of the session. We still have around 20 minutes.
Okay,
Kasia,
so
we
I'll
can
move on. Okay, I'll move
Yeah.
on. So we are going back now to your classroom. Who is play therapy for? I hope you can see.
The hands-on section of the webinar with ideas that they will take back to their classes, right?
Almost there. Yes, it is.
It's coming. So wait till the end.
Yeah. So the invisible and the visible students, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this story, but you know, in this story, there is the invisible boy who is just quiet and shy and withdrawn, and the attention of the teacher usually goes to the ones who are noisy and, you know, always visible. So in the context of invisible types and the visible type of students in your classroom, start thinking that direction. Know who are the children who you might categorize as visible and not visible, and then reflect to yourself, how do you deal with this? Because it's not always easy, right? In that, when you have so many children in the classroom, and then usually the invisibles just remain invisible, but they might be carrying quite a heavy baggage. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in the classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie, because Nathan and Sophie are obviously the loud ones and the troublemakers. Let's focus on the different types of students in your environments, wherever you are. Who are the visible ones and who are the invisible? If you could just describe really quickly, you know, who are they? What types of behaviors do you observe in the invisible ones, and what type of behaviors do you observe in the visible, and the ones that usually get that attention? So let's have a chat about that.
Oh, very interesting chat. You reflect about your students, who are the visible one and who are the invisible one. And while you are putting your ideas in the chat, I have another question from Jackie. And Jackie is saying how we can encourage our school to be more open to play therapy and not to external sources. It's not widely accepted where she's working.
This is amazing. This is a great question, and we need more ambassadors like yourself, Jackie, and me, because this is what I've been, and all of us play therapists have been working on this concept, but obviously we do need to advocate more. And I would suggest perhaps talking to your school counselor would be the best place to start. but yes, I know schools like in the UK and in the United States, good schools do employ play therapists as a part-time, or hourly basis or full-time, some of them. So yes, definitely. In international schools, it tends to be a bit loosey-goosey because people think like, oh, when a word therapy, I will get there because it's a bit of stereotyping there. Well, we don't need therapy because, as a play therapist, it will scare the parents. But so we do need to have a lot more promotion going
Awareness.
on in
Yeah.
terms of advocating for it.
So visible one, they are active, impulsive, they are strong, expressive. The invisible one, they are the shy one, introvert. The visible one, overconfident. Invisible, they are well behaved, they are silent student, they are quiet. They came from different background with maybe language barrier. Visible student, they are misbehaving. The visible one, they are who are more, that maybe she wants to say the invisible one, they are more focused. Visible, they are active, they are creative. These are some of the description coming in the chat regarding the answer.
Yes, just as your self-reflection on this one, think about it. How do you deal? Perhaps it is good to put more attention to the invisible ones in a different way. Think about it yourself, and
Dina
perhaps.
shared a nice one. She said that the invisible one, they will always pop up in a surprise, and then you will see them kind of, oh wow, I have not seen him before, something like that.
Yes, exactly. Maybe they have gone to play therapy and they gained that courage. Okay, so typically, I just wanted to share with you. I don't know if the screen is visible.
Not really. So may the
No.
participants ask if they can get like some of the slides. So if we can do
Right.
that,
Sure.
you can email me the ones that we can share, and then I will send it to them
So,
via email.
okay, so really just to quickly, typically, I'm talking now, I will go further to end the session with the times of crisis, which we are now during this COVID-19 situation. But remember that the children I'm going to mention that are listed now, they still are there. These cases are still there. On top of that, we are dealing with a huge anxiety pressure that is coming from the COVID situation. So if a child is having a hard time coping with a separation divorce, is having difficulties to cope with the new environment, maybe they relocated from one place to another, they had to say goodbye to their friends, they had to say goodbye to their beloved grandma, can also be a problem. Is not reaching her full social academic potential because maybe they have a learning disability and they are already developing emotional issue because of this. Maybe that child is continually unhappy, withdrawn, quiet. Pay attention. We don't know why, but it's good to find out and start some mechanism that will maybe help them. Is misbehaving, gets involved in playground fights, or often argues. The children, when they misbehave and they are, seen as the bad ones, they aren't. They aren't bad. There is something underlying. There are reasons why they are doing this. Child maybe has been diagnosed with the IDD or ADHD, or is maybe you are thinking of referring a child to a doctor to check that. Has suffered trauma of any kind of trauma, has suffered emotional, physical, or sexual abuse. Unfortunately, these things also take place. Is in the process of being adopted or fostered, suffers because of separated, we already mentioned that, divorced parents, suffers from stress, anxiety, or phobias. How kids are sometimes have bad dreams, they even can't sleep because of these phobias. Has suffered a loss of bereavement of any kind. I have had quite a few clients lately because their grandparents died. Children nowadays need to deal with quite heavy emotional baggage. Deals with the terminal illness of a family member. Perhaps there is terminal illness involved, maybe a car accident. Maybe a child himself is being hospitalized. So we often do play therapy in hospitals as well. Is ill, disabled, or diagnosed with autism. Finds it difficult to make friends. Is bullied or bullies. There is also an underlying issue. I'll become a little bit faster because I want to take you to the And now, on top of everything else, we are dealing with the COVID-19. Now, I'm just going to present some evidence and some data that comes from Italy and Spain. So the emotional impact of the COVID-19 quarantine was assessed for children and adolescents from Italy and Spain. Now, participants included 1,143 parents of children of age 3 to 18 years old who completed that survey. The study found that 85.7% of parents reported changes in their children's emotions and behaviors during the quarantine. The most frequently observed changes were difficulty concentrating, 76.6%, boredom, 52%, irritability, 39%, restlessness, 38.8%, nervousness, 38%, loneliness, 31.3%, uneasiness, 30.4%, and worries, 30.1%. About 75% of parents reported feeling stressed themselves about the quarantine situation. So think about it. Now we are, as educators, as teachers, you are also dealing with parents who are under enormous pressure. Parental stress was associated with increased reports of emotional and behavioral symptoms in their children. And also, parents are dealing. Some of them lose jobs. Some of them, can't cope with the situation of being in the lockdown and working from home and taking care of their children. So there are a lot of components that changed our lifestyles. Now, children have many worries related to the consequences of COVID-19, such as whether they will see their friends and relatives, go to school, or get sick, or are dealing with death of someone in the family as well. So think about it. What comes to your mind? What are your experiences? Let's share, because it's also, good for us to talk about this to someone like today during this webinar, because, you might be dealing with situations in your classroom, knowing that children, what differences have you noticed in the behavior of the children, whether you are, working from in a regular classroom, or you're working also from home, being in a lockdown, because people are in different situations right now. So what comes to your mind at the moment
while we are waiting for the answers, I would like to remind everyone that we still have one webinar that will start in approximately 45 minutes. So what comes to your mind regarding the behavior that you have noticed after the lockdown or during the lockdown, or currently, if you are back to the face-to-face teaching and learning, or you are still online? Let us read some of your ideas and thinking. So they are anxious, they are bored, they are restless, they are hyperactive, stressed. These are some of the ideas coming in the chat.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know if you can see the next PowerPoint
slide. Yeah, we can see it. This one is clearer a little bit.
This one is clear. So yeah, it's has a complex array of factors. Now it has not been known. So think about the children who already have issues. They are already, before the COVID started, so on top of everything else that they are facing, there is this. There is an enormous fear. There is the biggest problem at the moment is anxiety because of the unknown. And it's anxiety that comes also from us adults. So, they see it at home. They also probably feel it, from the teachers, because that's where we are. But it is worrying, and it definitely cannot be left and swept under the carpet. And, yes, it will pass at some point. However, it will have its consequences. So I think it's important to have that in mind so that we can do whatever it is in our capacity at the moment. The research now demonstrates that COVID-19 is affecting the mental health of children and adolescents, and the depression and anxiety are prevalent. So what these elements that we have just seen, that you have also confirmed that you see, some of them in your classrooms. Now, what happens? They are leading to post-traumatic stress disorder. And then it leads to children's depression. sleep disorders, anxiety, children. Yeah, I have, not only therapeutic, but my friends' children, people I know, they just don't want to go to the computer anymore. They just, they have all sorts of different issues going on. So let's just be sensitive to this one. And at the end of this, I'll give you some ideas, and do feel free to contact me, whenever you need something hands-on, because obviously having a play therapist in your environment, it takes time, but I do strongly encourage you to work on it and become an advocate for this intervention to happen. I'm sure you are. Can you see the slide?
Yes, this one's clear.
So if you look at that brain part over here,
photos, it's very clear. It's the writing that was not very clear.
Okay, so here are these different types of different parts of the brain. So the one on the bottom is the survival state, the brain one. Am I safe? So at the moment, this one, because of COVID, this one is quite activated. That's why we have a lot of problems, because that part of the brain normally is stimulated in a different way. So have this in mind, because we are in the state, and I'm thinking all of us in some way, also adults, also parents, in the state of fear, okay? So the neurons, neurologically speaking, they do wire differently, and then the processes that go in the head also happen slightly different, differently, I would say, hugely differently. Now, because I know in most cultures, there is a stigma of mental health. Now, I think as educators, it is our also role to promote that stigma disappears at some point. There is no stigma about having a headache. There is no stigma about, having a broken leg, but there is that stigma about mental health. So I think it's very, very important to deal with it, and we as educators, it's part of our role, I think, also to start thinking, how can we promote that it's, that mental health is important, it does matter. So think for yourself, what can you do in your environment to promote moving away from mental health stigma in there? Different cultures, different, we just come from, we work in different areas, but unfortunately it does exist. Let's talk about this one now. So do you see the questions?
Yeah, I can read them aloud as well. So why play therapy in schools? How have you changed your understanding about play therapy? What can you do to support your students' mental health in your current school situation? What is on your mind?
So whichever one of these you choose whichever one you feel comfortable answering, and let's share.
So you want them to share in the chat, right?
It would be great if we could share a few, yes, whichever one.
So I'm going to repeat the question, and feel free in the chat or on Facebook to let us know one answer of any of these questions. What is on your mind now? What can you do to support student mental health in your current situation? What changed in your thinking about play therapy, and why play therapy in schools? And then one of the answers from Ala, more awareness session for the parents, one-to-one counseling for the people who really need it. These are some of the ideas from our attendees.
Okay, brilliant. Yes, absolutely. This is something, start with yourself and see how can you promote, how can you, perhaps some of your homework assignments also could be.
So Ala is saying that play therapy increases creativity. Maybe this is something that changed according to her understanding. Dina is confirming that, yes, I support it. I wanted more. I want to talk more about my student. How can we set up, this is a question. So how can we set up a therapeutic environment in a classroom? Any tips?
Good one. That's a good one. So let's move on, because it's a little bit further. I have some ideas for you. Okay. Yeah. So and let's move on.
6 minutes.
Okay. So we're almost there. So, the illustration here, the picture shows that, a dad, a parent, parents are overwhelmed. Parents are absolutely overwhelmed with the situation, and I have, you know, many parents coming, so I think they would benefit also from some kind of play therapy in some way, or art therapy maybe. But what can you do? What can you do? Talk to the school counselor. um, Connect with a play therapist. There is a telehealth, there's a teletherapy, there's an online therapy. So there are also free, so many, I'm really pleased that so many free resources now suddenly popped up, so you can ask questions. There are a lot of materials that, you know, and answers. So I'm happy to also answer you if you email me a question, you know, if you have it, please do. Now, I really want to point to this one. Self-care matters. Self-care, because, you know, look, you being an educator, being a teacher, so many young minds matter, young hearts, young, you know, people, and their parents. Because, you know, being in the teacher's shoes, we also take care of parents in many ways. So many times we need to, like somebody suggested, we need to give more sessions to parents. We need to educate the parents and tell them about it. Yes, absolutely. But parents need your support, because they can't support their children if they are in the state of this gentleman here, you know. So families go through a lot of crisis situations at the moment as well. Um, Make sure to also be sensitive. That is connected to this one. If you self-care, if you know, whichever way you do self-care, somebody does yoga, somebody meditates, somebody goes for a walk, or somebody goes jogging. You know, it's up to you. Of course, it's your self-care, but it does matter. Now, make sure that to react to the unusual behavior that you see. And online is quite difficult sometimes to detect. But I hear quite a few children don't turn up to online classes for you know, investigate why is that, what's happening. Then in the classroom, you can arrange play-based therapeutic engagements. Of course, it's not going to be play therapy as such, but you can do the non-directive play-based therapeutic engagements, which also I'm happy to give, because depending on the age of children, there will be different ones and different environments, but there are lots of them. Now,
Play
I just want
therapy.
to, this is really short, and then we have one more and we are done, Ali, okay? This gentleman here, you know, he is a fellow therapist, play therapist. And also this video I will share with you, so you can share with some parents, because he does relate to children with autism, but it's not only, it's, of course, any child will benefit, and especially child with, you know, any kind of problematic behavior, right? It doesn't have to be a child with autism.
Play therapy is, in my mind, perhaps the most important thing you can do for your child, whether they have a diagnosis or not. I always talk about it as it is the oldest and truest form of therapy on the planet. It's how we naturally developed all of our social communication, our ability to relate to others and emotionally connect, to develop meaningful eye contact and gestures and language. It's all rooted in play. That's where we learned all the basic tools. And the very first step of play is actually just the act of falling in love with somebody. The very first thing that any child does is they fall in love with their caregivers. Generally the mom first, as they're breastfeeding and they're right there in their close quarters. And all that moves into interaction and play at a very young age. And it's not just because it's fun to do and enjoyable, but it has all of this just natural development that it triggers in a child. And one thing sort of leads to the next. So however it happened, we were put on this planet with this internal software that just kind of knows what we need in order to develop into these social beings. And play is the perfect vehicle for that. Starting with just a platform of the ability to attend to somebody for a period of time, then turns into meaningful eye contact, which turns into gestures, which turns into language, which turns into conversation, and and it just builds on one another. But we always have to remember that that started with simple games of, you know, peekaboo and hide and seek, and that we can't identify and recognize the value in play for typical children and then turn around and say that it doesn't have value for children with autism. And it's just a matter of us deciding that, well, we're going to figure out how to play with them rather than try to make them do all these
This
things.
is one hint that he gives, that you can all, you know, regardless whether it's a diagnosed child, as he said, or not, you know, one type of an activity that you can give as homework. Spend 20 minutes with your child simply observing what your play opportunities are. That means you can then join, and he is going to talk about it. You join, I mean, as a parent, you tell the parents to join the child in their play, not telling them what to do, not telling them, you know, put this puzzle piece here, draw, now it's better to use green to draw, you know, grass. Maybe they want to draw grass in the, you know, orange, I don't, you know. So parents need that kind of input. Follow the child non-directly rather than telling them what to do. How much time do we have, Ali?
It's 5:30 Dubai time, so we really need to start wrapping up.
Okay, we're wrapping up. So I will send this video because there is a lot more
Yeah, you
to
can
it.
send them the link. Yeah, you can put the link and then
Yes. Yeah.
Play therapy.
Okay, so this is just, you know, forgive you. I strongly believe, as I mentioned at the start, that I believe in the power of literature, definitely. So do use stories, do like, and you can do anything with it. So these are some of the therapeutic stories that, or stories that you can use in the situations like now in a crisis, huge bag of words, and I'm sure you are familiar with some of them. But do use this, as Nana downstairs, Nana upstairs, dealing with the death of the grandma, but in a very, you know, powerful and child-friendly way, not to traumatize them more. Do use expressive arts, do use as assignments. So incorporate this as the part of your planning. Have something per day that will address their emotional well-being. It can be, you know, reading a story together with them, and maybe make your literacy lesson around, evolving around that. Maybe address something with expressive arts that is self-directed, not heavily descriptive. Involving a non-directive play, inventing a game, maybe a role play, therapeutic storytelling. This is something that you can write a story and tell them as well. Journals. I find journaling for a bit older children, you know, this is very powerful. If they can draw illustrations and, you know, maybe talk about their emotions, or maybe about, if they don't want to, they're not comfortable yet, you know, to talk about their own emotions, maybe about the character from a story. Movement engagements, definitely, you know, some yoga elements, or, you know, there's a lot going on currently. So think about it, but try to involve at least one thing that will address that emotional well-being in a playful way. And do contact Si Bambino if you need anything. It's me responding. So if you would like to write an email, ask me some questions, I'm happy to answer. And at this point, you know, thank you for joining the session, and thank you for now becoming the play therapy ambassadors worldwide, and to stay in touch. Thank you, Ali, for inviting me and for letting me talk about play therapy.
Good. So I've put in the chat your website. Take a screenshot of this. You can email Kasia. She will be answering your question. Some people ask for more resources, more documents. I need to finish it and wrap it up here. I know that you were very engaged, maybe listening. Many of you, they had new ideas, and many people are commenting that they will start embedding this in their training or in their classes. I still have one more session. The day was a very long one, but let me announce that on 20th of February, put it on your agenda. We are having a day under We Are All Special Inclusion Day, and we will talk about all maybe the difficulties that you are facing with a student with difficulty or with high achiever. All the recording of the workshops are on our YouTube channel. Please feel free to subscribe, to join, to share, and we have plenty of things for you in 2021. Stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To close this workshop and then get ready for the following webinar. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.